Warning: the following video have flashy images, so be aware of any seizures. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and leave your opinion on the following stories. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy. My obsession with the dark web led me to a hidden community of time travelers where I discovered the terrifying consequences of altering the past. This is my warning to the world. Hey everyone, I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but after what I've been through, I feel like I have to warn the world. It all started innocently enough. I was curious, curious about the dark web. I'd heard all the stories, the rumors, the urban legends. So one night, fueled by a mix of curiosity and naivety, I decided to take the plunge. I downloaded Tor, followed some instructions I found online, and before I knew it, I was browsing the underbelly of the internet. At first, it was all just what you'd expect. Shady marketplaces, illegal substances, even more illegal services. But then I stumbled upon something different, something unsettling. It was a forum, not just any forum though. This one seemed hidden, like it wasn't meant for just anyone to find. The layout was archaic, like something straight out of the early 2000s. And the posts, they were bizarre. People were talking about time travel. Yeah, you heard me right. Time freaking travel. At first, I thought it was just some elaborate role-playing game or a bunch of nutjobs spewing nonsense. But the more I read, the more I realized they were serious. They talked about this hidden community of time travelers, people who had somehow cracked the secrets of traversing through time. And they weren't just talking about visiting the past or the future for a quick sightseeing tour. No, they were talking about altering events, changing history. And that's when things got really disturbing. They spoke of consequences, dark, twisted consequences that came from meddling with the natural order of things. They talked about paradoxes, about reality tearing itself apart. I'll admit, I was hooked. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the screen. I wanted to know more, to dig deeper into this hidden world. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized I was in over my head. I started receiving private messages from members of this community, warning me to tread carefully. They said I was playing with fire, that I had no idea what kind of forces I was messing with. And they were right. One night, as I was scouring through old forum threads, I stumbled upon a post that sent chills down my spine. It was from someone claiming to be a time traveler, warning others about the dangers of altering the past. They spoke of a world on the brink of collapse, of horrors beyond imagination. I wish I could say I heeded their warning, that I logged off and never looked back, but curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to see for myself if any of this was real. So I continued down the rabbit hole, deeper and deeper, until, well, you'll have to wait for part 2 to find out what happened next. But let me tell you, it's a descent into madness unlike anything I've ever experienced before. And I fear that I may never be able to escape its grasp. Alright, so where was I? Oh yay, part 2 of my descent into the abyss. So after spending countless hours lurking on this dark web forum, I finally decided to take the plunge. I reached out to one of the members who claimed to be a time traveler, hoping they could shed some light on what was going on. To my surprise, they responded. We exchanged a few messages, and before I knew it, I was knee-deep in a conversation with someone who claimed to have traveled through time. They told me their story, how they stumbled upon this hidden community and became obsessed with the idea of altering the past. I won't bore you with all the details, but let's just say it involved a lot of cryptic messages, vague warnings, and promises of untold power. They spoke of a device, a machine capable of bending the fabric of reality itself, and they claimed to have used it to change history. At first, I was skeptical. I mean, who wouldn't be? Time travel sounded like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. But the more they talked, the more convinced I became. They had details, specifics, things that no ordinary person could possibly know. And that's when they made me an offer. They said they could help me become a time traveler too, that they could show me the ropes and guide me through the process. All I had to do was prove myself worthy. Needless to say, I jumped at the chance. We arranged to meet in person at a secluded location far from prying eyes. I won't say where, for obvious reasons, but let's just say it was the kind of place you wouldn't want to stumble upon by accident. When I arrived, I was greeted by a figure shrouded in darkness. They handed me a nondescript package and instructed me to open it only when I was alone. I thanked them, my heart pounding with excitement and fear. As I made my way home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every shadow seemed to whisper my name. Every gust of wind felt like fingers brushing against my skin. But I pushed aside my paranoia and focused on the task at hand. When I finally arrived home, I wasted no time tearing open the package. Inside was a strange device, unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It hummed with an otherworldly energy, pulsing with a faint blue light. I followed the instructions that had been provided to me, setting up the device in my living room and activating it with trembling hands. And that's when, well, I'll save the rest for part 3. But let's just say, things didn't go exactly as planned. And what I discovered, well, it shook me to my core. So, stay tuned for the next installment of my descent into madness. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Alright, so where were we? Oh yeah, part 3 of my little journey into the unknown. So there I was, standing in my living room, staring at this strange device pulsing with eerie blue light. I took a deep breath, steadying my nerves, and activated it. At first, nothing happened. I waited, holding my breath, expecting, I don't know, something miraculous, I guess. But then slowly but surely, I felt a shift. It was like the air around me grew thick, almost tangible. And then, in an instant, it was like I was being pulled apart at the seams. I can't really describe the sensation. It was like every atom in my body was being stretched and twisted in ways that shouldn't be possible. It was agony, pure and simple. I screamed, but the sound was lost in the void. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. I stumbled backwards, gasping for air, my head spinning with dizziness. I glanced around, trying to make sense of my surroundings, but nothing looked familiar. I was standing in the middle of a forest, dense and foreboding. The trees loomed overhead, their twisted branches reaching out like gnarled fingers, and the air, it was thick with the stench of decay. I stumbled forward, my heart pounding in my chest, trying to find some sense of direction. But no matter which way I turned, it felt like I was going in circles. It was like the forest itself was alive, taunting me, mocking me. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I heard it. A low, guttural growl echoing through the trees. I froze, my blood turning to ice in my veins as something emerged from the shadows. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. A monstrous creature, all twisted limbs and gnashing teeth. Its eyes burned with a primal fury, locking onto me with a hunger that sent shivers down my spine. I turned and ran, adrenaline coursing through my veins, my heart pounding in my ears. But no matter how fast I ran, it felt like the creature was right on my heels, always just out of reach. I don't know how long I ran for, hours maybe, or maybe just minutes. Time seemed to lose all meaning in that twisted nightmare of a forest. But eventually, just when I thought I couldn't go on any longer, I stumbled upon a clearing, and that's when I saw it. A rift, shimmering with an otherworldly light, like a tear in the fabric of reality itself. Without thinking, I threw myself through it, desperate to escape the horrors that lurked behind me. And that's where I find myself now, sitting in front of my computer, trying to make sense of it all. I don't know what I saw in that forest, or how I ended up here. But one thing's for sure, I'm never messing with time travel again. So consider this a warning to anyone foolish enough to follow in my footsteps. The consequences, they're not worth it. Trust me. Alright, buckle up folks, because things are about to get even weirder. So after my little jaunt through the nightmare forest, I found myself back in my own reality, or at least I thought I did. See, when I stumbled out of that rift, I expected to find myself back in my living room, surrounded by familiar sights and sounds, but instead I found myself in, well, I'm not exactly sure how to describe it. It was like a twisted version of my own world, all warped and distorted. Buildings loomed on impossible angles. The sky was a sickly shade of green, and the air, it tasted like ash. I stumbled through the streets, trying to make sense of it all, but nothing looked right. The people I passed seemed off somehow, like they were nothing more than empty husks, going through the motions of life without any real purpose. And then just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I stumbled upon a group of figures huddled in the shadows. At first, I thought they were just ordinary people, like me. But then I saw their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light, and I knew I was in trouble. They surrounded me, their movements jerky and unnatural, like marionettes being controlled by some unseen puppeteer. They spoke to me in hushed whispers, promising me power beyond my wildest dreams, if only I would join them. I tried to run, but they were too fast, too strong. They dragged me kicking and screaming into the darkness, their grip like iron around my wrists. And then, well, let's just say things got even weirder from there. They took me to their, I don't even know what to call it, some kind of twisted temple, I guess. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. All strange angles and pulsing lights, and the things I saw inside. Well, I'll spare you the gory details. Suffice it to say, it wasn't pretty. They showed me things, horrible things, visions of a world consumed by darkness and despair. They spoke of a war that had been raging for centuries, fought between forces beyond our comprehension. And they said I was the key to unlocking a power that could tip the scales in their favor. They said I was special, chosen by fate to play a pivotal role in the coming apocalypse. Needless to say, I didn't stick around to hear the rest of their little sales pitch. I fought tooth and nail to escape, using every ounce of strength I had left to break free from their grasp. And somehow, against all odds, I made it out alive. I stumbled back into the twisted streets, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind reeling with the horrors I'd witnessed. But as I ran, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. So consider this a warning, my friends. The darkness is coming, and it's coming for all of us. So be careful who you trust, and never ever underestimate the power of the unknown. Alright folks, this is it. The final chapter of my little journey into the depths of madness. So after narrowly escaping the clutches of those twisted creatures, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and let them wreak havoc on our world. So armed with nothing more than sheer determination and a healthy dose of adrenaline, I set out to find answers. I combed through every dark corner of the internet, searching for clues, for anything that could help me make sense of what I'd experienced. And slowly but surely, I started to piece together the truth. See, it turns out those creatures weren't just figments of my imagination. They were real, and they were coming for us, for all of us. They were called the Eldritch, ancient beings beyond our comprehension, who had been locked away in another dimension for eons. But now, thanks to the meddling of fools like me, they were breaking free, eager to unleash their wrath upon the world. I won't bore you with all the details of my investigation. Suffice it to say, it involved a lot of late nights, a lot of dead ends, and more than a few brushes with death. But in the end, I managed to uncover their plan. They were using time travel, just like those fools on the dark web had claimed. But instead of altering events for their own gain, they were using it to tear open rifts in the fabric of reality, allowing them to slip through into our world. And they were getting closer. With each passing day, the rifts grew wider, the barriers between our world and theirs weaker. It was only a matter of time before they broke through completely, unleashing untold horrors upon us all. But I refused to let that happen. Armed with the knowledge I'd gained, I set out to stop them, to close the rifts and banish the Eldritch back to the hellish dimension from whence they came. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. I fought tooth and nail, battling through hordes of twisted creatures and facing unimaginable horrors at every turn. But in the end, I succeeded. With the help of a few brave souls who were willing to stand by my side, I managed to seal the rifts and banish the Eldritch once and for all. But the cost was high, too high. I lost friends, loved ones, people who had been willing to sacrifice everything to help me in my quest. And as I stand here now, looking back on everything that's happened, I can't help but wonder, was it worth it? Did I do the right thing? Or did I only succeed in unleashing a new kind of horror upon the world? I guess only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, I'll never mess with time travel again. And neither should you. So consider this my final warning. The dark web may seem like a playground for the curious and the adventurous, but trust me, it's a rabbit hole you don't want to go down. Stay safe out there, my friends, and whatever you do, never forget the horrors that lurk in the shadows, waiting to drag us all into the abyss. My friends and I downloaded a creepy game from the dark web, only to realize it was trap for a hitman. So, let me start from the beginning. It all began innocently enough, like most things do, with a group of friends looking for some late-night thrills. We were a bunch of college students, bored out of our minds during summer break, craving something more exciting than just Netflix and pizza. One fateful night, Jake, the tech-savvy guy of our group, stumbled upon a thread in some obscure corner of the internet boasting about a mysterious game available only on the dark web. The game supposedly promised an experience unlike any other, filled with twisted puzzles and mind-bending challenges. Naturally, being the curious bunch that we were, we decided to give it a shot. Now, let me make one thing clear. None of us were naive. We knew the risks of delving into the depths of the dark web, but at that moment, the allure of the unknown was just too strong to resist. So, armed with a full sense of bravado and a healthy dose of skepticism, we downloaded the game onto Jake's laptop. The installation process was anything but ordinary. It was like diving headfirst into the abyss, each click sending shivers down our spines. But still, we pressed on, fueled by the excitement of what lay ahead. Once the game was installed, it didn't take long for us to realize that we were in for something far more sinister than we had bargained for. The interface was cryptic, filled with eerie symbols and unsettling imagery. And the instructions? Well, let's just say they were more like warnings, cautioning us to proceed with extreme caution. But of course, being the reckless bunch that we were, we ignored the warnings and dove straight into the game. What followed can only be described as a descent into madness. The puzzles were unlike anything we had ever encountered before. They twisted and warped reality itself, blurring the lines between the virtual world and our own. And with each level we completed, the stakes grew higher and higher until it felt like we were playing a game of life and death. But perhaps the most disturbing part of it all was the feeling that we were being watched. It was like there was someone or something lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Despite our growing unease, we pressed on, determined to uncover the truth behind the game. Little did we know, we were about to stumble upon something far more sinister than we could have ever imagined. That night, as we sat huddled around Jake's laptop, bathed in the sickly glow of the screen, we made a discovery that would change our lives forever. We uncovered a hidden file buried deep within the game's code, a file that revealed the true purpose of the game. It wasn't just a game, it was a trap set by someone or something with a far more sinister agenda, and we had walked right into it. As the realization of our predicament sunk in, a chill ran down our spines, freezing us in place. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with tension as we stared at the screen in disbelief. The hidden file contained a series of chilling messages, each more ominous than the last. It detailed a twisted game of cat and mouse, where unwitting players like us were lured in under the guise of entertainment, only to become unwitting pawns in a deadly game orchestrated by a faceless entity. But what chilled us to the bone were the final words of the message. You have been chosen. The hunt begins now. Those words hung in the air like a death sentence, filling us with a sense of dread unlike anything we had ever experienced before. It was as if the walls themselves were closing in on us, trapping us in a nightmare from which there was no escape. Frantically, we searched for a way out, but it was like trying to navigate a maze with no end in sight. Every turn led us deeper into the darkness, further from salvation, and closer to our inevitable demise. And then, just as despair threatened to consume us whole, we stumbled upon a clue. Hidden within the depths of the game was a series of coordinates leading to God knows where. It was a slim ray of hope in an otherwise bleak situation, but it was all we had. With a sense of urgency born out of desperation, we made a decision. We would follow the coordinates, confront whatever or whoever was behind this twisted game, and put an end to it once and for all. Little did we know, we were walking straight into the lion's den, our fate sealed by our own curiosity and foolishness. But in that moment, with the weight of the world bearing down on our shoulders, we had no choice but to press on, hoping against hope that we would emerge from this nightmare unscathed. But fate, it seemed, had other plans for us, and as we embarked on our journey into the unknown, little did we realize that we were nothing more than lambs being led to the slaughter, armed with nothing but our wits and a burning desire to survive. We set out on our journey into the unknown. The coordinates led us deep into the heart of the countryside, miles away from civilization and any semblance of safety. As we drove, the tension in the car was palpable, each of us lost in our own thoughts, grappling with the enormity of the situation we found ourselves in. The world outside seemed to blur together, a haze of darkness and uncertainty looming on the horizon. But despite the fear gnawing at our insides, there was also a glimmer of hope, a determination to see this through to the end, no matter the cost. It was a fool's hope, perhaps, but it was all we had. Hours passed in agonizing silence, the only sound the hum of the engine as we pressed on, our destination drawing ever closer with each passing mile. And then, finally, we arrived. The coordinates led us to an abandoned warehouse, its decrepit facade looming ominously in the darkness. It was like something out of a horror movie, a relic of a bygone era left to rot and decay. As we stepped out of the car, a sense of unease washed over us, the hairs on the back of our necks standing on end. But we pushed aside our fear and pressed on, determined to uncover the truth behind this twisted game. The warehouse was like a labyrinth, its corridors twisting and turning in on themselves, leading us deeper into the bowels of the building. It was like a maze, designed to confuse and disorient us at every turn. But still, we pressed on, driven by a determination to see this through to the end. And then, just when we thought we couldn't go on any longer, we stumbled upon it. A room bathed in darkness, its walls adorned with strange symbols and arcane runes. It was like something out of a nightmare, a twisted reflection of reality warped beyond recognition. And in the center of the room, a figure stood waiting, a figure cloaked in darkness, its features obscured by shadow. It was the source of our torment, the puppet master pulling the strings behind this twisted game. As we stared into the abyss, a sense of dread washed over us, threatening to consume us whole. But still, we stood our ground, ready to face whatever horrors lay ahead. Little did we know, the worst was yet to come, and as the figure stepped forward, a malevolent smile playing on its lips, we knew that our journey was far from over. Time seemed to stand still as we faced off against the sinister figure before us. Its presence filled the room like a suffocating fog, choking the air out of our lungs and sending shivers down our spines. With every fiber of our being screaming at us to run, to flee from this nightmare, and never look back, we stood our ground, our resolve unshaken despite the fear coursing through our veins. The figure spoke, its voice a whispering hiss that sent chills down our spines. It revealed itself to be the mastermind behind the twisted game, a being of pure malevolence and cruelty. It taunted us, mocking our feeble attempts to defy it. It reveled in our fear, feeding off our terror like a predator toying with its prey. But still, we refused to back down. With a courage born out of desperation, we confronted the figure, demanding answers to the questions that had plagued us since the beginning. And that's when we learned the truth. The game was not just a game, it was a test of our strength, our resilience, and our will to survive. The figure explained that it had been watching us, studying our every move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And now that moment had arrived. It offered us a choice: submit to its will and become pawns in its twisted game, or face the consequences. But we refused to bow down to its demands. We refused to become puppets in its sickening charade. And that's when the true horror began. With a flick of its wrist, the figure summoned forth its minions, twisted abominations that lurked in the shadows, waiting to tear us apart. We fought with everything we had, our bodies battered and bruised, but still, we refused to give up. We refused to let this monstrosity win. And then, just when it seemed like all hope was lost, we saw it, a glimmer of light, shining through the darkness like a beacon of hope. With renewed determination, we pressed on, pushing back against the tide of darkness, threatening to consume us whole. And then, finally, after what felt like an eternity, we emerged victorious. The figure lay defeated at our feet, its twisted form crumbling to dust before our eyes. But the victory was bittersweet, for we knew that this was not the end. The darkness still lingered, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. But as we stood there, battered and bruised but unbroken, we knew one thing for certain: we would never again underestimate the power of the unknown. And as we turned to leave the warehouse behind, we swore to ourselves that we would never again be caught in its sinister embrace. As the figure advanced towards us, its presence filling the room with an oppressive weight, we braced ourselves for the final confrontation. Every instinct screamed at us to run, to flee from this nightmare, and never look back. But something inside us refused to give in to the overwhelming sense of fear. With trembling hands, we reached for anything that could be used as a weapon, our hearts pounding in our chests as we prepared to face our adversary head on. The air crackled with tension, each moment stretching out into eternity as we waited for the inevitable clash. And then, just as it seemed like all hope was lost, a miracle occurred. A blinding light erupted from the darkness, illuminating the room with an otherworldly glow. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as we watched in awe, unsure of what was happening before our eyes. And then, from out of the light, a figure emerged, a figure bathed in radiance, its presence filling us with a sense of peace and tranquility, unlike anything we had ever experienced before. It was like a guardian angel, sent to protect us from the darkness that threatened to consume us whole. With a wave of its hand, it banished the figure before us, sending it fleeing back into the shadows from whence it came. In the aftermath of the confrontation, we were left shaken but alive. The warehouse around us seemed to fade away, leaving us standing in a void of endless darkness. But we were not alone. The guardian angel stood before us, its presence a beacon of hope in the midst of despair. It spoke to us in soothing tones, reassuring us that we were safe now, that the darkness had been vanquished. And as we basked in the warm glow of its presence, we knew that we had finally found our way out of the nightmare that had consumed us for so long. With a sense of gratitude and relief washing over us, we followed the guardian angel into the light, leaving behind the darkness and uncertainty that had plagued us for so long. And though we knew that our journey was far from over, we faced the future with newfound courage and determination, ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. For in the end, it was not the darkness that defined us, but the light that guided us through it. And as we stepped out into the world once more, we knew that no matter what trials lay ahead, we would face them together, stronger and braver than ever before. My friends and I decided to investigate a mysterious marketplace that appears on the dark web at midnight, and what we found will leave you traumatized for life. Alright, so let me start by saying I'm not usually one for thrill-seeking adventures. I'm just your average guy, you know? Working a 9 to 5, chilling with friends on weekends, the whole shebang. But this was different. It all started when my buddy Jake stumbled upon something he called the ultimate dark web mystery while deep diving into the abyss of the internet. We were hanging out at his place, a couple of beers in, when he whipped out his laptop like he was unveiling the Holy Grail. With a mischievous glint in his eye, he told us about this mysterious marketplace that supposedly popped up only at midnight. Jake had this way of making everything sound like an episode of some edgy crime show, so naturally, we were hooked. The kicker? This marketplace supposedly sold items that were straight out of your worst nightmares. Think cursed artifacts, bizarre creatures, you name it. And the only way to access it, you guessed it, the dark web. Now, I'm not usually one to believe in spooky stuff. Ghost stories around a campfire? Sure, I'll listen. But diving headfirst into the digital underworld? That's a whole other level of crazy. But before I could even voice my doubts, the rest of the gang, Sarah, Mike, and Alex, were already on board. And let me tell you, peer pressure is a powerful thing. So there we were, a ragtag group of thrill seekers, huddled around Jake's laptop, waiting for the clock to strike midnight. I remember feeling a mix of excitement and unease churning in my gut. Maybe it was the beer, or maybe it was the sheer absurdity of what we were about to do. Either way, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were treading into dangerous territory. Midnight rolled around, and with bated breath, Jake punched in the URL he'd found. The screen flickered to life, and for a moment, all we could see was darkness. But then, like a beacon in the night, the marketplace materialized before our eyes. It was like stepping into another world. The layout was simple. Rows of listings, each more bizarre than the last. I'm talking vials of mysterious liquids, ancient-looking tomes, even what appeared to be human teeth. And the prices. Let's just say they weren't in any currency I recognized. As we scrolled through the listings, a sense of unease settled over us. It was like we were intruding on something forbidden, something that should have stayed hidden in the depths of the internet. But curiosity got the better of us, and before we knew it, we were making our first purchase. It was a small trinket, nothing too outlandish, just a silver pendant engraved with strange symbols. Jake claimed it was some sort of protection charm, though none of us were entirely convinced. Still, it felt like a harmless enough way to dip our toes into the murky waters of the dark web. Little did we know that purchase would be the beginning of a descent into madness unlike anything we could have imagined. But that's a story for another time. Alright, so after our first foray into the dark web marketplace, things started getting weird. Like, really weird. At first it was just little stuff. Strange noises in the middle of the night, flickering lights, that sort of thing. We brushed it off as coincidence, chalking it up to our overactive imaginations. But then, things took a darker turn. Sarah started having nightmares, vivid, terrifying dreams that left her shaken to the core. She'd wake up screaming, covered in a cold sweat, unable to shake the feeling that something was watching her. We tried to reassure her, telling her it was just stress, or maybe something she ate. But deep down, we all knew it was more than that. As for the rest of us, we started experiencing odd occurrences too. Mike swore he saw shadowy figures lurking in the corners of his apartment, while Alex claimed he heard whispers coming from empty rooms. And me? Well, let's just say I had a few too many close encounters with things that go bump in the night. But the weirdest part, it was like the pendant we'd bought from the dark web was at the center of it all. Every time one of us had a run-in with the supernatural, the damn thing would start glowing, pulsing with an otherworldly energy that sent shivers down our spines. At first, we tried to ignore it, pretending like everything was fine. But as the days turned into weeks and the weirdness only intensified, we knew we had to do something. So we did what any rational group of people would do. We went back to the dark web. This time, we were on a mission. We scoured the marketplace for answers, desperate to find anything that could explain what was happening to us. And that's when we stumbled upon it. A listing for a ritual that promised to cleanse our souls of whatever malevolent force had latched onto us. We hesitated, of course. I mean, who in their right mind would willingly participate in some shady occult ritual they found on the internet? But desperate times call for desperate measures, and we were running out of options. So, with trembling hands and a sense of impending doom, we made our second purchase from the dark web. Little did we know that decision would seal our fate in ways we never could have imagined. But like I said, that's a story for another time. So there we were, gathered in Mike's dimly lit living room, staring down at the instructions for the ritual we had bought off the dark web. It was like something out of a cheesy horror movie, candles flickering, incense burning, the whole 9 yards. But despite our reservations, we knew we had to go through with it if we had any hope of breaking whatever curse had befallen us. The ritual itself was, well, let's just say it wasn't for the faint of heart. We had to chant incantations in a language none of us recognized, draw strange symbols on the floor in chalk, and sacrifice small trinkets that held sentimental value to each of us. It felt like something straight out of a nightmare, but we pressed on, fueled by desperation and a sliver of hope. As we performed the ritual, a sense of dread hung heavy in the air, like a storm cloud on the horizon. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end, my heart pounding in my chest as though it were trying to escape. But still, we persevered, determined to see it through to the end. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. We extinguished the candles, wiped away the chalk markings, and collapsed onto the floor in exhaustion. For a moment, there was silence, a heavy, oppressive silence that seemed to swallow us whole. But then, something changed. It was like a weight had been lifted off our shoulders, a sense of peace washing over us like a wave crashing against the shore. We looked at each other, relief and disbelief mingling in our eyes as we realized that maybe, just maybe, we'd finally freed ourselves from the darkness that had been plaguing us. For a brief moment, It felt like we were invincible, like we'd conquered the forces of evil and emerged victorious. But as we would soon discover, our ordeal was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning, and what we found next would shatter our perceptions of reality and plunge us into a nightmare from which there was no escape. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's save that for the next part of the story. After the ritual, things seemed different. At first, it was hard to put our finger on it. A subtle shift in the air, a faint whisper at the edge of our consciousness. But as the days passed, the truth became impossible to ignore. We started noticing strange patterns in our daily lives, coincidences that were anything but. It was like someone or something was pulling the strings, orchestrating events with a malevolent purpose. And try as we might to resist, we found ourselves drawn deeper into the web of darkness that had ensnared us. It started with the dreams, vivid, haunting visions that left us shaken to the core. But soon, the line between dreams and reality began to blur, and we found ourselves questioning our own sanity. Were we truly awake, or were we trapped in some twisted nightmare from which there was no escape? As the days turned into weeks, we delved deeper into the mystery that had consumed us, desperate for answers. We scoured the internet for clues, pored over ancient texts and occult manuscripts, seeking any shred of information that could shed light on our predicament. But the more we searched, the more elusive the truth became, slipping through our fingers like grains of sand. And then, just when we thought we'd reached a dead end, we stumbled upon it, a hidden forum buried deep within the darkest corners of the internet. It was like stumbling upon a secret society, a clandestine gathering of individuals who shared our obsession with the unknown. As we delved deeper into the forum, we uncovered a wealth of information, ancient rituals, forbidden knowledge, secrets that had been hidden from the world for centuries. But the more we learned, the more we realized the true nature of the darkness that surrounded us. We were pawns in a game far larger than ourselves, mere playthings to be toyed with by forces beyond our comprehension. And try as we might to fight back, we soon realized that we were hopelessly outmatched, our struggles futile in the face of such overwhelming power. But still, we refused to give up hope. We clung to each other, united in our determination to break free from the chains that bound us. Little did we know, our journey was far from over, and the worst was yet to come. But that's a story for another time. As we delved deeper into the dark web, the veil of ignorance was lifted, revealing the true horror that lay beneath. We discovered that the marketplace we had stumbled upon was not just a hub for cursed artifacts and forbidden knowledge. It was a gateway to something far more sinister. It turned out that the items sold on the marketplace were not just random curiosities. They were tools, weapons even, wielded by beings of unimaginable power. And by purchasing them, we had unwittingly drawn their attention, inviting them into our lives with open arms. But even as the truth dawned on us, we refused to cower in fear. We knew that if we were to have any hope of surviving this ordeal, we would have to confront the darkness head-on, to stare into the abyss and emerge victorious. So, armed with newfound knowledge and a sense of determination, we prepared for the final showdown. We gathered whatever weapons we could find, makeshift charms, ancient incantations, anything that might give us an edge against our otherworldly foes. And then, with a sense of grim resolve, we ventured into the heart of the darkness, ready to face whatever horrors awaited us. It was like stepping into the mouth of hell itself, the air thick with the stench of decay and the echoes of tortured souls. But still, we pressed on, driven by a sense of duty and a desire for redemption. We fought tooth and nail, our every breath a battle cry, our every movement a testament to our unyielding spirit. And in the end, against all odds, we emerged victorious. The darkness that had threatened to consume us was vanquished, banished back to the depths from whence it came. We had stared into the abyss and emerged unscathed, our bonds forged stronger than ever before. But as we stood victorious amidst the wreckage of our ordeal, we knew that the battle was far from over. The darkness may have been defeated for now, but it lurked in the shadows, waiting for the opportunity to strike once more. And so, we vowed to remain vigilant, to stand guard against the encroaching darkness, to protect our world from the horrors that lay beyond. For we knew that so long as there was light, there would always be hope. And though the darkness may rise again, we would be ready to face it, united in our determination to prevail. But for now, we basked in the glow of our victory, knowing that we had stared into the abyss and emerged victorious. And though the scars of our ordeal may never fully heal, we knew that together we could overcome anything that the darkness dared to throw our way. And so, as the sun rose on a new day, we stood tall, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that no matter what trials may come, we would face them together, united in our determination to conquer the darkness once and for all. But that's a story for another time. Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be the one to uncover something this messed up, but here we are. It all started innocently enough, just a regular guy with a knack for digging up weird stuff on the internet. But what I stumbled upon wasn't just weird, it was downright terrifying. I was browsing through some obscure forums late one night, fueled by a combination of boredom and curiosity. That's when I came across a thread that seemed to be nothing more than a series of random numbers and letters. Most people would have just scrolled past, but call it intuition or stupidity. I decided to dig deeper. After hours of deciphering and cross-referencing, I realized these codes were actually coordinates. Intrigued, I plugged them into Google Maps and found myself staring at a remote government facility nestled deep in the Nevada desert. Now, this wasn't just any facility. This was Area 51. I know what you're thinking. Oh great, another conspiracy nut claiming they found aliens. But trust me, this goes way beyond little green men. The more I dug, the clearer it became that something sinister was happening behind those barbed wire fences. I started piecing together reports of strange sightings in the area, everything from glowing orbs in the sky to mysterious disappearances of hikers. But what really sent shivers down my spine was the mention of experiments involving time travel. Yeah, you heard that right. Time freaking travel. At first, I thought it was just some crackpot theory, but the evidence was there, buried in declassified documents and eyewitness accounts. The government had been tinkering with time manipulation for decades, and they were getting dangerously close to cracking the code. But here's where it gets really messed up. According to some whistleblowers I managed to track down, the experiments weren't just about sending people back and forth through time. They were also dabbling in interdimensional travel, opening portals to parallel universes and making contact with beings from other worlds. I wish I could say I stopped there, that I had the sense to walk away before things got too deep. But curiosity got the better of me, and I found myself obsessively digging for more answers, even as I felt the walls closing in around me. That's when the nightmares started, vivid, haunting dreams of shadowy figures watching me from the darkness, whispering secrets I couldn't comprehend. I woke up drenched in sweat, feeling like I was being watched, even in the safety of my own home. I know how it sounds, like something straight out of a bad sci-fi movie, but I can't shake the feeling that I've stumbled onto something big, something that goes far beyond the realm of human understanding. So here I am, reaching out to you, fine folks of Reddit, in the hopes that someone out there can help me make sense of all this, because if what I've uncovered is even half as real as it seems, then we're all in a lot more trouble than we realize. All right, Reddit, buckle up, because things are about to take a turn for the bizarre. After my initial discovery sent me spiraling down the rabbit hole of government secrets and shadowy experiments, I couldn't just sit back and ignore it. I had to know more, even if it meant risking my own sanity in the process. I started reaching out to anyone and everyone who might have information, from former government insiders to conspiracy theorists holed up in their mom's basement. Surprisingly, I actually managed to strike gold with a few of them, though what I uncovered only fueled my growing sense of dread. One source, who claimed to have worked at Area 51 back in the 90s, told me about a project known as Operation Prometheus. According to him, it was a top-secret initiative aimed at harnessing the power of alien technology to achieve time travel. Sound crazy? Well, buckle up, because it gets even crazier. Apparently, the government had been in cahoots with extraterrestrial beings for decades, trading advanced tech for, well, who knows what. The details were fuzzy, and most of what I heard sounded like the ramblings of a madman, but there was something in his eyes, something that told me he believed every word he was saying. As if that wasn't enough to make my skin crawl, I also stumbled upon reports of strange occurrences near the facility. People going missing without a trace, animals found mutilated in bizarre rituals, and sightings of creatures that defied all logic and reason. I wish I could say I was making this up, that I had some twisted desire for attention or fame, but the truth is, the more I dug, the more I realized just how deep the rabbit hole went. And the deeper I went, the more I felt like I was being watched, like every move I made was being scrutinized by forces beyond my comprehension. But even as the fear gnawed at the edges of my sanity, I couldn't bring myself to stop. Call it morbid curiosity or sheer stupidity, but I had to know the truth, no matter the cost. So stay tuned, dear Redditors, because in part 3, I'm going to delve even deeper into the heart of darkness that lurks within Area 51. Alright, Reddit, grab your tinfoil hats, because we're about to dive even deeper into the rabbit hole. After my last update, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was onto something big. So, armed with nothing but caffeine-fueled determination and a healthy dose of paranoia, I delved even further into the dark underbelly of Area 51. My search for answers led me down a labyrinthine maze of classified documents and whispered rumors, each one more unsettling than the last. But buried among the mountains of disinformation and redacted files, I found a thread of truth that sent chills down my spine. According to a source who claimed to have insider knowledge of the goings-on at Area 51, the experiments being conducted there weren't just about time travel or interdimensional travel. No, they were about something far more insidious: mind control. Picture this: a shadowy cabal of government scientists holed up in their underground lair, tinkering with the very fabric of human consciousness. They weren't content with simply manipulating time and space. They wanted to manipulate our very thoughts and emotions, bending us to their will like puppets on a string. At first, I couldn't wrap my head around it. Mind control? It sounded like something out of a cheap sci-fi flick. But the more I dug, the more evidence I uncovered to support the claim. Reports of strange behavior among the locals near Area 51, whispers of mysterious disappearances and unexplained suicides. It all seemed to point to one chilling conclusion: the government was experimenting with the techniques straight out of the MK Ultra playbook, and they were getting dangerously good at it. But here's the kicker: I'm not the only one who knows about this. There are others out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. And if I'm not careful, I could end up just like all those poor souls who dared to peek behind the curtain. So dear Redditors, I implore you to heed my warning. There are forces at work in this world that we can't even begin to comprehend, and they'll stop at nothing to keep their secrets buried. But I refuse to be silenced, not when the truth is so close I can taste it. Alright, fellow Redditors, it's time to strap in, because things are about to get even weirder. After my last update sent shockwaves through the community, I knew I had to keep digging, no matter how deep the rabbit hole went. So armed with nothing but a healthy dose of skepticism and a relentless thirst for the truth, I continued my quest to unravel the mysteries of Area 51. But let me tell you, the deeper I dug, the more I felt like I was teetering on the edge of madness. Every document I uncovered, every eyewitness account I stumbled upon, only served to reinforce the chilling reality of what was happening behind those heavily fortified walls. According to one particularly disturbing report, the experiments being conducted at Area 51 weren't just about time travel or mind control. No, they were about something far more sinister: human experimentation. I'm talking about innocent men, women, and children subjected to unspeakable horrors in the name of scientific progress, genetic manipulation, forced mutations, you name it. The government didn't just cross the line, they obliterated it without a second thought. And the worst part, they were getting away with it, hiding behind a veil of secrecy and plausible deniability, while innocent lives were destroyed in the name of progress. But here's where things take a truly sinister turn. According to some sources I managed to track down, the experiments at Area 51 weren't just about pushing the boundaries of science. They were about opening the door to something far darker. I'm talking about summoning entities from beyond our realm, beings that defy all logic and reason. Whether they're aliens, demons, or something else entirely, I can't say for sure. But one thing's for certain: they're here, and they're hungry for blood. I wish I could say I was making this up, that it was all just the ramblings of a paranoid mind. But the evidence is there, buried beneath layers of lies and deception, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover it. So, dear Redditors, I urge you to heed my warning. The darkness that lurks within Area 51 is far more insidious than any of us could have imagined. but we can't let fear hold us back, not when the truth is within our grasp. Alright, fellow Redditors, it's time to bring this roller coaster of a journey to its jaw-dropping conclusion. After countless sleepless nights and more than a few brushes with madness, I finally pieced together the last fragments of this twisted puzzle. But fair warning, what I'm about to reveal may shake you to your core. As I delved deeper into the abyss of conspiracy surrounding Area 51, I stumbled upon a revelation so horrifying, so mind-bendingly twisted, that it's taken every ounce of willpower to even put it into words. Are you ready for this? The government wasn't just experimenting with time travel, mind control, and otherworldly beings. No, they were preparing for something far more cataclysmic. The end of the world as we know it. I know, it sounds like something out of a bad Hollywood movie, but bear with me. According to the sources I managed to dig up, the powers that be had caught wind of an impending global catastrophe, one that would wipe out life as we know it in the blink of an eye. And instead of warning the public or trying to prevent it, they were preparing to ride out the storm in their underground bunkers, leaving the rest of us to fend for ourselves. But here's the kicker. They weren't just planning to survive the apocalypse. They were planning to emerge from their bunkers as the rulers of a new world order with absolute control over what remained of humanity. I wish I could say I was making this up, that it was all just a paranoid fantasy born of too many late-night internet binges, but the evidence is there, buried beneath layers of deceit and misinformation, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover it. So, dear Redditors, I leave you with this final plea. Don't let their lies go unchallenged. We may be just a small corner of the internet, but together we have the power to shine a light on the darkness that lurks within the corridors of power. Stay vigilant, stay skeptical, and above all, stay curious. The truth may be stranger than fiction, but it's out there, waiting for those brave enough to seek it. And with that, I bid you farewell. Until next time, stay safe out there in the wilds of cyberspace.